Hi, I'm Steve Pleich, and I'm your host for this edition of Voices from the Village. As you all know, all of us are sheltering in place now, and we're hoping that you're staying as safe as we hope that we are. What you'll be seeing this evening is a teleconferencing Zoom presentation of a very, very important issue that's facing our city, and that is the downtown plan, what we want our downtown to look like in the future. And we have some folks, I think, who are the architects and visionaries for that, who will really be able to maybe explain what their vision would be over downtown. I will say it's interesting that as I kind of did my research for the program, I read their very nice website, which certainly should be referenced multiple times during the show, so you'll be able to, to get some information from that as well. But also the websites for the Campaign for Sustainable Transportation, Don't Bury the Library folks, Jean Brocklebank and her wonderful work, and the Sierra Club. Interestingly, the Downtown Commons Advocates are the one that I know least about. So I'm really looking forward to the folks here who are going to give you a wealth of information. Not only are they informed and knowledgeable about this issue and these issues generally about the downtown, but they're very passionate advocates for a beautified and a workable, sustainable downtown. Now, let me introduce Dr. John Hall. John is the convener for the Downtown Commons Advocates. John, welcome. Bob Morgan, who is the chair of the Transportation Committee for the Sierra Club. Good to see you again, Bob, and welcome. And Karen Simmons. Karen, welcome, Plaza Lane Optometry in downtown Santa Cruz. So welcome to all of you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentations about your visions for really a sustainable and beautiful downtown. So let's get going.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. It's really a pleasure for the three of us to be here from Downtown Commons Advocates. And just by way of introduction, because Steve and presumably many people in the community don't know as much about Downtown Commons Advocates as they do about, say, the Campaign for Sustainable Transportation or Don't Bury the Library, we formed about 2 years ago to begin to advocate for turning parking lot 4, the present site of the downtown farmers market, into a permanent location for the farmers market in a downtown commons. That would involve a park-like atmosphere. We'd eliminate the asphalt and all of that. We would have a permanent shed structure of some sort through a community planning process for the farmers market and perhaps for other kinds of community events. And that's our vision of having an anchor for downtown Santa Cruz. And unfortunately, the alternative to that is to eliminate that location as an open space location, to move the farmers market onto what we think of as the backside, the north side of Pacific Avenue, facing on Front Street, in a place that just doesn't have the sunlight in the afternoon, put the farmers market there in a much smaller space, and build a 6-story parking garage on parking lot 4, which would involve cutting down quite a few trees and so forth. So we're advocating for keeping the farmers market where it is and creating what Santa Cruz really badly needs, which is a downtown commons. We simply have no public space downtown. If we're going to create, as we hope we will, more affordable housing and more housing downtown, that's going to increase the need all the more for having a downtown commons. So that's what we're about, and we're happy to take this time to tell you about various aspects of it. And I guess maybe I'll ask Karen to say some things about what our vision is for a market and a commons and why they're important. Karen?
Yes, we need to reimagine our downtown. We need to bring our talents and wonderful Santa Cruz-ness to this process. And this is really commons plazas in cities that we pay a lot of money to go to just get that feeling. They are located in places like where Lot 4 is. They're where transportation nodes come together, where a logical, walkable corridor exists. And some of these lucky cities have had them for hundreds or even thousands of years. You know, we have to start on a day one process here. But Lot 4, when you listen to people like Mark Lakeman, who is a man who has a business called City Repair for decades and goes all over the country doing that, helping cities thrive and sustain themselves into the future. This is always the heart of it. The heart of it is having a common community area where events, relaxation, trust occurs in these places. You end up speaking to people you wouldn't normally in your life connect with. And you know, most of us have experienced it elsewhere. We know what it is, and we need it. And it's been recognized by the city in documents. You know, in the earthquake, they wanted to do this after the earthquake. You know, many factors why, but we have one of the last remaining parcels. This is almost a last chance effort to get this done for us and for generations to come, who will thank us for having the prescience to make community the heart of our decision making. So
no, I think that's really, really central to it, the aspect of community, Karen, and also what you say. This is a moment where we're going to decide what to do with this now parking lot that has a sort of pop-up event of the farmers market once a week, which is a tremendously successful thing. And you can have a wonderful outdoor space there for people to gather in, or you can build a 6-story structure in that space. But you know, if you build a 6-story structure, you can't suddenly change your mind and say, "Oh, gee, we made a mistake. Let's make a park there." It's gone forever. So I think we need to talk a little bit both about the history of people being interested in having a downtown commons or downtown plaza, and about why is it that this idea that a parking garage should be built on Lot 4, how did that even come about? So let me just say a little bit about the history in terms of the 1989 earthquake, and how the earthquake really created this situation where people felt like Santa Cruz had to rebuild itself. It literally did have to rebuild itself. Part of the idea there was perhaps to use the space where the present Rittenhouse building is as a downtown plaza. Well, you see what happened there. They have the Rittenhouse building. It's a reasonable building, I suppose, but it's not a plaza. And you can imagine if there had been a plaza on Pacific Avenue. That didn't happen. However, the city plans, even revised as late as 2017, call for more public space downtown. City planners recognize the need to have a downtown plaza, downtown commons, whatever you want to call it. So I guess the question, Bob, I want to put to you is, if this is part of the plan to have a parking, to have a downtown commons, if it's part of the plan to have more open space downtown, why the parking garage idea? Where did that come from?
Well, thanks, John, and thanks for putting it in context. And I got involved with this project, or with the concept of a downtown commons, out of my opposition to the proposal that was put forth by city staff to merge a new library on the ground floor of a 5-story parking garage, which would make it a 6-story edifice, covering the entire span, the breadth and the length of Lot 4, displacing the commons or displacing the farmers market and the antique fair, and instead, building a huge concrete garage on top of a library. I became involved because of my interest with the Campaign for Sustainable Transportation and Auto Dependency. And we realized after a number of consultant presentations to the city and the Downtown Commission, to the Planning Commission, that building a parking garage, particularly a brand new parking garage with 600 spaces, initially it was going to be 620 spaces, is absolutely the last thing a city should embark on, with, particularly in this day and age, with the extreme cost and of something like that. And the consultants that have come to the city have been very clear that we don't have a parking inventory, a parking supply issue in the city. What we have is a parking management problem and a parking management concern and issue. And all the consultants which have met with the councils, Patrick Steegman in particular presented in March 2019, along with Adam Millard-Ball, a UCSC professor. The consultants have all said that indeed the first thing we need to do is introduce different strategies, and Sigmund gave 18 different strategies to really cope with or deal with parking in Santa Cruz before we conceive of building a large parking garage.
Okay, all right. And that, I think, is so that we don't necessarily have inadequate supply of parking. We simply have not figured out how to use our parking effectively that we now have. Is that
That's right. As Sigmund has pointed out, the city is doing some things. They're not doing everything they could, and they're certainly not doing the things that they've already put in place fully. As an example, the city has instituted a downtown eco pass, which allows all employees downtown to receive a free parking pass or parking card, or rather, a free bus pass to come downtown free, not use a car to commute into work. They've allocated 4,400 bus passes to give to employees. I believe they've allocated so far about 1,000, perhaps a bit more. There hasn't been an aggressive outreach program to really get this program moving forward. They've also tried to upgrade or to bring into the present time their parking pricing policies. Our pricing policies have really been antiquated. They are not comparable to other cities like us, for example, San Luis Obispo, whose parking pricing really reflects the need for parking, and it reflects current economic policy for the city. So there are things which we can do. We can, also change the way we work with monthly parking permits, putting those monthly permits out to peripheral parking lots, and then letting those downtown parking spaces now occupied by the monthly permit holders go open for people to come down and shop. And those are just, a few simple examples of how we can really manage our parking better downtown. And in fact, we have a lot of supply, more than we need, and the perception that there is a parking problem is really an inaccurate perception. There may not be a place on Pacific Avenue when you want it, midday during the shopping time at 2 or 3 o'clock, but there's certainly a place around the corner. There may not be a place at the Locust Street garage or the Cathcart Lincoln garage, but there would be a place in the Front Street garage. And so, these are the kinds of things which we can educate people about and really, propose and manage better instead of building a parking garage.
Great. Okay. And it's very expensive as well. And we can maybe get into that a little bit later in detail. But I would like to just show people in our audience what it will look like if we have, I want to put up a map here so that we can actually see what we're talking about, at least not see it directly, but see at least where the where we're talking about here. And wait a minute, I don't. Oh, there it is. Okay. So here, here's Pacific Avenue down here, and then the farmers market occurs right here every Wednesday afternoon. They have longer hours in the summer than in the winter, but it's a wonderful space that faces west, and it is surrounded. It has some restaurants over here and bars and so forth. It has a hamburger place across the street. There's another parking lot here that actually affordable housing or something could be built there. And then this space over here is a space in which there's another parking lot owned by the Calvary Episcopal Church, and they are talking about building affordable housing there. So you would have the downtown commons surrounded by and creating a new vitality of businesses all around it. Meanwhile, and as you know, there's this proposal to have the library as part of the garage, but the existing library here, and it is across from City Hall, and then catty-cornered is the Civic Auditorium. And so the possibility there is that you can have a downtown civic center with these three entities there, and that would create a greater a different node of vitality in the city. So Karen, I'm just curious what you think about why this sort of change in the structure of things, maintaining the market and having a commons. It's not really a change, but it's a solidification. Why does that create more vitality in downtown Santa Cruz?
Because people are tribal and they want to gather and they want to communicate. And in this difficult time, look how we're communicating on doing this way. It's hard. We don't pick up on body language. We don't really, fully grasp the other person. And the commons is essential to doing that. People watching is pastime that, the first caveman, the neighbor, he must have been people watching right away. It's something we actually have a need to do to connect. And you can't do it on busy streets. You can't always do it, in a retail establishment. So without it, we will have a very much more difficult, sustainable future, because the future that obviously we all see, and we're talking worldwide, is something that is going to take a lot of communication about, and it's going to take communication between a broad breadth of incomes, cultures. The ideas that are going to thrive and sustain us through this century are going to come from a coalition like no other, is what I think is the future, and that's the only way we're going to get there. So having this in our town is only going to make us, we're already pretty good. We all pretty much love and want to protect what we have. And that's going to make it solidify it even more. That, dang it, I'm going to protect this place. I'm going to love this place, and I need a place to express that. And that to me is what the commons could do for our community.
Yeah, I've been very struck. We've been down at the downtown farmers market every Wednesday until the virus basically made that impossible, talking to people about our idea for a commons, and telling them, look, what is, unless we do something to stop it, there are people aggressively pursuing a plan to cut down 18 trees, some of them beautiful full growth magnolia trees, and create this 6-story building here. And you tell that to anyone who is standing in the middle of the farmer's market, and they look up and try to imagine, so what does 6 stories look like right here, as opposed to having these trees and having this market? And frankly, it's unimaginable if you actually go to this spot where this building would be constructed. And so I think one of the things that we have to understand is how much these kinds of spaces mean to cities. You know, you go to Barcelona, you go to Healdsburg or Paso Robles or Davis, California. All of these places have these thriving downtowns with music, concerts, markets, all kinds of events. We have the antique fair as well as the farmers market. There was a Green Commons Extinction Rebellion event last fall that was held with musicians and speakers at the site of the future downtown commons. It was a tremendous success. People said, gee, we just love gathering here. So I guess, you know, I'm struck that there's resistance to the commons by people that have other kinds of interests, and I'm not quite clear what those are. So I wonder if people, you know, Bob, do you have thoughts about what does parking mean to business owners? And Karen, you know about this too, being involved with a business downtown. So what does parking mean to business owners?
Karen, do you want to start?
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
I just want to say the Adam Mallard Ball comment about Capitola, the Capitola Mall. I mean, if thriving businesses have to do with plentiful free parking right in our neighbor's backyard, that's obviously not the issue. Also, even now, you can park anywhere downtown for free for 2 months now. It's a ghost town. So it's not about the parking to create a thriving businesses, places people want to come. Look at San Francisco. I mean, it's not about the parking that creates that.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Karen. And I know that Kurt, your husband, has owned Plaza Optometry for over 30 years. It's a wonderful optometry business right on Pacific Avenue, and I know you two are real strong advocates for the Commons, and you see this as a vibrant plus for the city.
Right, absolutely.
And, I also think, John, we're talking about downtown squares. I think of where my brother lives in Sonoma. I think of Watsonville with the gazebo right in the middle of that wonderful town square. Many towns are able to show off the best parts of themselves with an open space for public gathering. Regarding the parking, John, and the perception that there is a lack of parking, I want to show something that Patrick Sigmund presented to the council back in March, and I'm going to share this on the screen here. And this was part of Sigmund's presentation. The city every 10 years, actually every year, does a count of how many occupied spaces there are, and you'll see that in this lower red line here. And these are the occupied spaces, the busiest time of year, the busiest week of the year in December, the week before Christmas. And you can notice that here we really maxed out about 2008. 4,331 spaces were occupied on this weekday before Christmas during shopping season. And then what happened is that we had the recession, and then we've made a little bit of advance here. People are coming downtown in cars, but indeed, we really are seeing fewer cars, fewer spaces being occupied within the 10 years between 2008 and 2018 by number 700. 700 fewer spaces are occupied, same time during the week, same month of the year, right before Christmas. What we see here in the blue line is the total number of public and private spaces down in the parking district in Santa Cruz. And what Sigmund's point is that we have an oversupply actually of parking, not an undersupply. And it's how we manage that parking, excuse me for that, it's how we manage that parking which really is going to be critical. And in fact, we have, from the 2018 parking census, we have 2,000 spaces which are unoccupied at the hour of, on a Wednesday or Thursday before Christmas, at the hour of 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, you know, the data is available to the staff, the data is available to the city council, and yet, you know, I don't know why people don't listen to that data. They're forecasting different numbers. They think the future will be different, but indeed the trends for people getting into cars and driving to park are actually showing, the millennials and the trends are showing that people aren't doing that as much. And certainly our last 10 years of parking data also bear that out.
Well, that's really it. We're entering into a new era. We don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but we know that it's not going to be the same, certainly for the next 2, 3, 4 years as it has been in the past. And then hopefully we are becoming environmentally conscious. We are finding ways to manage parking demand. We are hoping to get out of our cars and so forth. And the other thing to note, this parking garage, independently of anything else that were in it, if you wanted to add in a library, that would be additional money. If you wanted to add in affordable housing, that would be additional money. The garage itself, over the period of time that the bonds to construct it would have to be retired, would cost $87 million. Are we at a moment in our history when we want to spend $87 million on parking spaces for 600 cars? I'm not convinced that that's the case. So,
yeah, John, I would just say that any auto-oriented development is only going to create more traffic, more congestion, more pollution, go against any climate change goals. It seems quite contrary. So I agree with you. It does seem interesting that they keep pursuing this project.
it does. And I think that we'll get into this in the next half hour, but they have tried to find allies in order to do something that has become an increasingly dubious proposition. The alternative is a vision for a downtown commons that's a vision for Santa Cruz, and that's what we need to emphasize.
Really fascinating presentation by all of you folks, and we appreciate you being here during this first half hour of our show. Professor Hall, thank you so much. Bob Morgan, again, great to see you again, and Karen Simmons. And we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come right back and give you more information and really more of a vision of downtown Santa Cruz as presented by these very passionate and very knowledgeable advocates.